From the Center for Agricultural Profitability at the University of Nebraska-Lincoln, this is Nebraska Farmcast, and on this special episode, we're taking a closer look at the grocery industry here in Nebraska, because on October 3rd, 2024, the Nebraska Cooperative Development Center and the Nebraska Grocery Industry Association will be hosting the second annual Grocery Industry Summit in Kearney. The event will bring together a wide range of stakeholders, from grocers and vendors to policymakers and more, to discuss strategies for navigating challenges and building a stronger, more resilient grocery market in our state. Joining me to talk about the summit are two of the key organizers of the event. Ansley Fellers is the Executive Director of the Nebraska Grocery Industry Association. Hi, Ansley. Thanks for joining us.
Thank you. And
Charlotte Narjes is Director of the Nebraska Cooperative Development Center here at the University of Nebraska-Lincoln. Charlotte, good to have you again.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you both for being here. And Ansley, we'll start with you. If you could just talk a little bit about what's happening October 3rd at the summit in Kearney and what you're hoping to achieve with the event.
Yeah, thanks, Ryan. So this is the second year the grocers and NCDC have teamed up to bring our stakeholders together in Kearney to give our independent grocers specifically and our other affiliates a little bit more information about what the landscape in the grocery industry in Nebraska looks like, what kind of resources are available to our independent grocers who might be looking to, gain a little bit more knowledge, understand what kind of opportunities are out there. Maybe they're trying to expand certain sections of their stores, or they need help with workforce solutions and technology, and we're just hoping to get them a little more information and provide them tools so they can find all of that, in an ongoing way.
What was the response like last year? I know it was the first time you did this last year.
It was great, and it was really well received. And one thing that happened last year, we started a rural grocery resources page on our website where we just linked to all of the information that Charlotte and her team and folks from USDA brought to the event. And now I know, and Charlotte can talk a little bit more about the UNL NCDC site that's up and running now too. So I think that we had great feedback, and I think one of the really positive things to come from this is just a standard ongoing place for people to find resources and contacts.
That's great. And yeah, Charlotte, so speaking of, we know here that your work with the Nebraska Cooperative Development Center, we know that small towns across Nebraska continue to face challenges with keeping local grocery stores in their communities. So how are you approaching the issue at the summit, and what role could cooperative businesses play in addressing these challenges?
Okay, thanks, Ryan. First, just want to mention, Ansley mentioned resources on our page. Two of them that we have. One is a business transition document to help people understand how you might want to transition a grocery store, and also a spreadsheet that people can use to figure out their cost. But when you think specifically to the conference this year, really excited that we have one session with cooperative businesses. One is Emerson, the Post-60 Cooperative. They will be there and talk about why they formed as a cooperative and the opportunities there and the challenges around that. Then we have another cooperative from North Dakota, actually, that formed as a rural access distribution cooperative. And it is like a countywide cooperative that was formed. They still work with a wholesaler, but they have like 6 grocery stores working together to keep their costs lower and more affordable grocery stores, as an example of a cooperative formed, working together with others. And so we'll introduce those models and some other examples that people can think about. If they work together, what would that look like?
Great. And we should point out the Nebraska Cooperative Development Center's website, if you're looking for those resources, Charlotte just mentioned, is ncdc.unl.edu. And Ansley, back to you. I'm just curious, what are some of the most significant changes that you've seen in the grocery industry, and how Nebraska's grocers and the industry's other stakeholders have adapted to those changes?
I think what would be really obvious to folks is just the landscape of competition, and that, we're not, folks, especially even in rural areas and in lower income areas, aren't as insulated maybe as they were at one point. And so you've got the entry, I know Charlotte might talk a little bit more of dollar stores, so really cheap goods that might seem cheap on the surface, and they're not necessarily a cost savings to lower income folks in the long run, but they save them money up front, and that's a type of competition competition that is relatively new in the marketplace, and we're seeing it more and more in rural areas. And then, online competition and things like that. And folks, these smaller independent stores who have maybe been in the family for generations, they're adapting. They have to adopt technology. They need to meet consumers where they're at. And I think everybody recognizes that. I think most people, whether you are familiar with the way small businesses operate or not, you also understand that, your costs are a little higher and adapting takes a little bit longer, and you need resources and you need a team of folks who are interested in helping you stay independent, stay local, and continue serving those communities. And I think people at the university working on these issues understand that too.
Well, it seems like a great partnership here. And Charlotte, one of those key topics at the summit, or one topic at the summit that will be discussed, as Ansley just mentioned, will be the impact of dollar store competition, maybe other big box competition in rural communities as well. So how does that affect small grocers, and what are some strategies that might be discussed at the summit that can help those small grocers remain competitive?
I think that, some of the things that we'll talk about is how that grocer really needs to think about, I'm going to step back, the cooperative model. When people want to form a cooperative grocery store, it's always quality of life. They know that they want that grocery store there so elderly can stay, attract new residents. They invest in it. They've bought stock, they come in there. And so from that perspective, or if they're investors, they want that store there. Sometimes once they get the store, they forget to continue to shop there. So the part of that strategy is reaching out to those in the community to continue to shop there and do enough basket size. Ansley mentioned that the costs have gone up, but the margins in a small rural grocery store are extremely slim, like 1 cent to the dollar is all that someone makes. And so they have to continue they want that store there, they're part of that fabric to help, so that's education. The store owners they have to look at that as sense of place. Maybe it's making lunches if they haven't, if it's making sure sales, looking at what the Dollar General has. Try not to compete with them on the goods that maybe, like toilet paper, you'll have it there, but maybe that's your number one not thing because they know they'll go somewhere else to buy that if it's available in the town. But there's been some good examples of successes on that. But I think it's going to be an education of what can attract people to that community or to that store.
Yeah, and I'm reminded, I guess we haven't really specifically hit on it, but kind of the reason behind a summit like this, I imagine it lies in the economic benefits, the community benefits to retaining those small town independent stores, right?
Yes, it's huge in terms, and that's something a later panel in the day will talk about food access, food deserts, and some of the grants that have come in the state to study that. But really, when we talk about small businesses in these little communities, and when we talk about some of the mainstays that are almost required in order for them to continue, like we talk about the school or we talk about a post office, the grocery store is always top of mind for folks who want to stay there and want their kids to come back, and just a quality of life issue.
Yeah, great. And those stores obviously need employees. So I know workforce incentives and training are going to be on the agenda at the summit on October 3rd. So Ansley, what kinds of initiatives or strategies might be highlighted to help Nebraska grocers attract and retain the talent that they need?
So I think sometimes, just like we talked about and Charlotte mentioned, there are resources and there are people that are interested in this issue. And I think a lot of times it's just a matter of connecting all the dots. And so I'm hoping with between the panelists that we have from the state of Nebraska who can talk about some of the grants available, some of the programs available, to even some of maybe who we'd call the middlemen, like Heartland Workforce Solutions or others who are connecting people who need jobs to the employers. I'm hoping that those opportunities will be highlighted and we can, again, just give people that ongoing information. Again, there are so many programs and buckets out there that sometimes people just don't even know exist. And we're just hoping to really highlight some of that.
Great. And then Charlotte, as you work with rural communities through NCDC, what opportunities or success stories have you seen in Nebraska? You've mentioned some a little bit. You said a little bit about it earlier. You've mentioned some on this podcast in the past, but what are some success stories or opportunities that could serve as models for other small grocery stores looking to strengthen their business?
Of course, since I work with the cooperative development, I see a number of cooperative stores that are really a good example. Utica, Nebraska just transitioned from an investor-owned cooperative to investor group to a cooperative, and truthfully to help minimize risk and to share that responsibility. Lynch, Nebraska has a cooperative grocery store. Emerson, Elwood, and Stapleton, all in Hay Springs, all some great examples that have formed in the last, some of them already over 10 years ago, and then recently in the last 4 or 5 years. But there's some other good examples out there. Everything from Cody has a school-run grocery store to, food is so important, and I think we'll just share a number of those examples.
Yeah, and at the Grocery Industry Summit coming up October 3rd, obviously, you'll see probably store owners attending, industry people attending. How about for people maybe just interested in the cooperative model and getting there? Is this something for them?
We would love that. I think we would love for people interested in maybe retaining their store or maybe hoping to bring back a store. Anybody interested in economic development, this is a key piece. We think we shared this with the economic development community this week. So just, hoping to get lots of new faces and anyone interested that we can share information with.
Great. Well, Ansley Fellers is the executive director of the Nebraska Grocery Industry Association, and Charlotte Narjes is the director of the Nebraska Cooperative Development Center here at UNL. And the second annual Grocery Industry Summit is October 3rd at the Eunice Conference Center in Kearney. You can find more information on the Nebraska Grocery Industry Association's website. That is nebgrocery.com. Ansley and Charlotte, thank you both.
Thank you.
Nebraska Farmcast is a production of the Center for Agricultural Profitability at the University of Nebraska-Lincoln. For the latest research-based information and education resources to manage your farm or ranch operation, visit our website at cap.unl.edu. That's cap.unl.edu.